Yep. All right, we're recording. We are live. Welcome, everybody. Hey, I am Paul Huzar here, and with me is, I think right below there, Mike Long. I'm the CEO of Team VetCor and VetCor. So for those of you that don't know, VetCor is a restoration company. We do water damage, mold remediation, fire damage, temporary roof tarping, things like that. Just about anything you could file an insurance claim for, damage to your house that you really can't take care of yourself. But the thing that makes us unique and different is that we do so by deploying primarily former members of the U.S. military veterans. And about not quite 2 years ago now, we started franchising it, and Team VetCor is the holding company that owns VetCor Franchising and a couple of other companies that enable us to franchise that concept. With us tonight is Mike Long, our Vice President of Franchise Development. Mike is also a former Army officer and a 94 grad from West Point. I'm a 90 grad. I'm also retired Lieutenant Colonel. All of our employees at VetCor are veterans except one, and she is a military spouse. It's actually illegal to only hire veterans, but our policy is we hire veterans and those who share similar values. And we franchise now to veterans, and we're primarily targeting veterans and their immediate family members, but we will franchise also to veterans and those who share similar values. But really our mission in life is to create, and it's our stated mission for our company, is to provide exceptional customer service to our customers, great value to our corporate partners who primarily are insurance carriers. We have over 60 insurance carriers now who are for whom we're a preferred vendor and a partner, while creating sustainable and meaningful employment opportunities for our nation's heroes, who are, for the most part, probably you, veterans of the U.S. military, and now also creating business ownership opportunities through franchising and our franchise network, because we believe that if we offer franchises to kinds of people like you out there, that you also will believe in the hiring of veterans and then go forth and create even more opportunities for vets. Our vision is to become the premier private employer of veterans throughout the United States through our franchise network, and also become the brand known for timely, quality, and reliable service. And it's something that we just believe in. And in that vision, mission, our values, we want to help vets. And so tonight we're just offering to help you. And if you're interested in VetCor as an opportunity, we're absolutely happy to try and talk to you about it and see if there is a good mutual fit. If there's not a mutual fit, so what? This is consistent with our mission to help veterans in their transition and help create meaningful and sustainable employment opportunities and business ownership opportunities, even if it's not with a VetCor franchise. So what we've been trying to do is create these informational webinars for veterans, because it's a ton of stuff that neither Mike nor I knew before we got into this industry, but it's a really good industry for veterans. So this is really just on us to try and help you. And our standing offer is we will be there as a resource for you. Again, even if it's not a VetCor franchise, but you're interested in franchising, if you're interested in some type of veterans advocacy, some type of veteran business ownership, et cetera, we'll be there as a resource for you. So with that, welcome everybody, and I'll pass it over to Mike, who is going to lead our way through this webinar this evening. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Paul. Welcome, everyone. As Paul said, Mike Long, West Point class of 94, and the VP of Franchise Development. As Paul said, we put together this series of webinars. We had done a couple already, and then we kind of had to take a pause as we were getting our updated franchise disclosure document completed and ready that we could issue to potential franchisees. And with doing so, we kind of wanted to have that coincide with a generic understanding the FDD. This is not going to be a franchise disclosure document conversation or talk about our VetCor FDD, but rather this is an educational opportunity to talk about a lot of the different line items that make up the FDD. And so this has been pre-recorded by me in a classroom setting. So I'm going to go ahead and play that video. We'll be recording. So if you have any questions, please take the time to jot them down now or during the course of the thing. And then when we wrap up the video in about 20 minutes, we'll be happy to answer any questions and have any dialogue with you that you would like. So I'll go ahead and get the video started, and here we go. Hi, thanks for joining us. My name is Mike Long, Vice President, Franchise Development for Bitcore Franchising. Today we want to walk through understanding the Franchise Disclosure Document, or FDD. It's a legal document that a franchisor must disclose to prospective franchisee before any franchise can be sold. The FDD contains 23 disclosure sections, and then under franchise law, we as the franchisor, such as Bitcore, we're required to disclose certain information about the franchisor, about our opportunity, about what we're selling, as well as the fees that are charged by the franchisor and the legal relationships that bind the franchisor and the franchisee together, and any other information that's pertinent to a franchise offering. So let's get started. First, I'd like to say there's a wonderful document out there on the web available, and we provide to all our potential franchisees that's put out by the Federal Trade Commission. And it's a consumer's guide to buying a franchise. With that being said, let's start walking through the 23 different line items that make up the franchise disclosure document. Line item 1 of the FDD is the franchisor's background. This tells you how long the franchisor's been in business, and sometimes it will include the competition. Lets you know if there's any legal requirements that are unique to our franchise business. Particularly, you need a special license or a permit in order to conduct a business in which you're interested in. This will help you be able to understand any costs or risks that you may take on if you happen to purchase a franchise. Line item 2, this is the business background. The business background obviously speaks for itself. It identifies who the executives are of the franchise system, describes their experience. Particularly, pay attention to the business backgrounds and the industry expertise of the individuals that are part of the franchisor. Check their managing experience, the time they've been franchising, and how long they've been with this particular franchise particularly. Line item number 3, that's the litigation history. This is important information that allows you as a potential franchisee to take a look at what litigation, if any, the franchisor may have been or is currently involved with. This also includes the executives of the organization and verifies whether or not they have been convicted of any felonies, and that must be disclosed as part of this document. It also outlines any civil actions that the franchisor may be involved in. This does not necessarily mean that you as a potential franchisee candidate cannot ask any further questions regarding these specific incidences, but it allows you an open awareness as to what the franchisor and its executives have potentially been involved in the past or currently any ongoing litigation. Line item number 4 is bankruptcy. The franchisor must disclose to its franchisee candidates, letting them know if the franchisor or any of its predecessors or affiliates or any of the executives have been involved in recent bankruptcy. If they have, carefully review the franchisor's financial statements they can find in line item 21 to see if the franchisor is financially solvent and capable of delivering on the support that they promise. This is highly recommended to have an accountant to review the required financial statements too. Line item 5 through 7 is initial and ongoing costs. This is a great stepping off point for anyone who's looking to get into a franchise business. Why? Well, it outlines kind of what the startup costs are going to look at for the organization. Usually it provides a minimum and a maximum range of what these costs may be associated with and are outlined very nicely in a chart. It also talks on whether or not your deposits, your franchise fees are refundable or non-refundable. It talks about the cost for initial inventory, signs, equipment, vehicles, any rentals, leases that may be involved. And it explains then ongoing costs, specifically royalties, advertising fees, marketing fees, technology fees. And it also allows you to ask or find out questions about, is there a grand opening that's required or any special promotions that the franchisee may need to take part in? Are there any operating or business licenses that you may need to have in order to conduct your business? The product or service supply costs, real estate or leasehold improvements. Not all franchises need to have a brick and mortar location. If in doing so, they may have to secure real estate on their own or through one of the franchisor's preferred partners, as well as take care of any leasehold improvements to that site prior to opening. Also talks about required equipment. Talks about your computer systems, any security system may be required, any special software or software systems that may be required in order to conduct business. Also touches upon the costs of training prior to the opening, as well as ongoing training support moving forward for your location. One other item that it touches upon is the business insurance. What type of insurance costs can you expect to incur, from automobile insurance, general liability, umbrella coverage, workers' compensation, etc. Also, when we start talking about local ordinances, depending upon what city you're in or county, there are different ordinances such as waste removal or zoning or any fire safety codes from a building perspective. If you need to have a brick and mortar location, may also be disclosed in the FDD lines 5 through 7. And lastly, then it talks about any potential employee salaries. This is a very large portion within the franchise disclosure document. Please read it carefully. As I stated before, it'll help you to start to build your pro forma or your business plan when you're looking to perform your due diligence on whether or not this is a financially competent option for you as a potential franchisee. Line item 8, supplier, territory, and customer restrictions. This also includes line item 12. Well, this tells you what are your franchise limits are. Who are you able to capture and get your supplies from? Do you have to use the recommended suppliers, or are you able to go out and obtain the supplies that you need on your own? What about the goods and services that you can offer for sale? It will be outlined here in the goods and services. So for instance, if you're required to provide a specific service and you're unable to do so, that's something that you may have to look into with the franchisor. Also, if you're wanting to maybe provide additional services that are not listed, that's something that you would definitely need to address with the franchisor to ensure that you're not in violation of your franchise agreement. Also, territories. Usually it's a specific geographic area outlined. Some of those territories may be protected, they may not. But this will also be outlined here on how you can market, advertise, and sell your goods and services to your consumers. Also, the use of the internet to sell goods and services. Are you able to do that within the bounds of the franchise disclosure document, or are you not? And then also, can you use the internet as the franchisee to solicit customers to sell to in your industry? And what does that look like? There are these types of restrictions limit your ability to exercise your business judgment if you're not very certain about the restrictions that are in place prior to moving into purchasing a franchise. Line item 11, franchisors advertising and training. These kind of are summarized in two areas. One, advertising, and two, training. Advertising, franchisees are often required to contribute a certain percentage of their sales to one or more national, regional, or local advertising funds. In addition, it could be a requirement as part of the royalties that are paid to the franchisor by the franchisee to also a certain percentage be paid. What does that look like? Well, that can be outlined in a myriad of ways. It can be outlined in internet advertising costs, any type of direct mail campaigns, television, radio, print advertising. And in some instances, the franchisor may require you on a monthly basis to provide an outline of what you've done from a local marketing perspective in your territory and geography to meet the criteria that's been set forth by the franchisor in this instance. Also, what can be outlined is the administrative costs that are associated with the advertising, any specific advertising that may be being done by the franchise or in your area, and then also any other expenses that may be related to the advertising. The next part of the line item 11 touches on training. Typically new franchisees, they count on the franchisor to provide a lot of the business as well as operational training needed to run a successful franchise. The training you need depends on your business experience and knowledge of the franchisor's goods or service. Specifically, take a look at what are the trainer's qualifications and who are the trainers? Who within your organization is required to have specific training? Is it you as only the owner, or is it all personnel that work underneath you in your business? What is the cost of the training new employees? And more importantly, who's required to pay for the training of those employees? How long are the training sessions and how many? What amount of time can you expect to spend on technical training, business management training, marketing training? Those are all three different facets of a business, and those are something that you need to be aware of moving forward before you get into purchasing a franchise. Also, does the franchisee offer ongoing support and training following the opening of your location? What does that cost, and what type of time commitment is that for you as the franchisee is a very important aspect to be aware of also. What type of support staff is available by the franchisor and made available for training or specifically troubleshooting in your area? And also, how many franchisees is that support staff responsible for? Obviously, you don't want to have a franchisor who does not have enough support staff when you have an issue or a problem and you need to get in contact with someone quickly to remedy a situation. Also, whether there's on-site individual assistance. Is that available, number one? And if you do need someone from the franchisor to come out on site, what type of cost is associated with that? And who bears the brunt of the cost for that support for an on-site individual from the franchisor to come to your location? We're going to jump ahead now to the renewal, termination, transfer, and dispute resolution part. That's line item 17 on the FDD. First, you always want to have it be clear to you, what do you need to do in order to qualify to have your franchise agreement renewed? First, understand what is the initial term of your franchise agreement. Is it 5 years with a renewal after 5 years for an additional 5 years, or is it a total of 10 years? That's an important aspect to know and take a look at. In addition, are there additional fees or the contract terms that are in there that you need to be aware of should the things change after your initial term that you've been in business? Termination. Item 17, it explains what your obligations would be to the franchisor after termination. So for instance, does the franchisor have the opportunity or the first right of refusal to purchase that business back from you, the franchisee? Do they offer assistance if you decide that you yourself don't want to be involved in the selling of that business? Should that be the case, then the franchisor could have the burden of cost in getting with a business broker to sell that business if they themselves do not wish to take it on. If that is the case, make sure you're clear and understand what are the actual costs that are associated with doing so if you decide not to sell the business yourself. Let's determine that you said, I'm really not interested in carrying forward with the business any longer. What are my options? Make sure these options are clear to you, because a good exit strategy for any business owner is an important aspect of being a business owner. Lastly, what is the role that the franchisor plays in potentially vetting any candidates if you yourself would make a decision to sell that business? Usually it's outlined there in line item 17 that the franchisor may or may not have the right and opportunity to vet your potential purchasing candidate for your franchise location. So just please make sure you're clear of that. And any type of approval process you need to go through, as well as making sure of what type of time window or notice you must give the franchisor in regards to your determination of not looking to carry on the business any longer. Financial performance representative, FDD line item 19. This is probably the most talked about line item of all the line items in the franchise disclosure document. It claims the franchisor chooses about what their sales and earnings of its franchisees, for which there's reasonable factual basis. It doesn't require the franchisor to provide sales and earning information, but most do.
Have this signed by either you or
To
the
be able to
commander.
disclose this,
Just
they
stole
must
my whole
have
wallet on
the
Sunday.
operations up and
So my
running
check was in
for
there and I
1
need
year.
that. So the MPs told me that I need that to be signed.
Audio. Could everyone please mute their audio? We're getting a lot of background noise. Paul, can you go ahead and mute everyone as the host? All right, I will continue. Prior to the publishing of the franchise disclosure document, it can disclose what the franchisee makes in terms of sales, income, profits. It doesn't necessarily have to be specific for each individual franchisee. Very large networks have hundreds of locations, and they'll tend to go ahead and break those down in quartiles or percentiles. So you may have a large franchise network that says the top 25% of their franchisees earn X revenue in the last year, or X percent of franchisees have earned X percent of gross profit in the said year. So read it with a keen eye, make sure you fully understand it. And most importantly, if you're not sure about what the line item 19 is stating to you from a financial standpoint, that's where it's very pertinent for you to get in contact with an accountant to help you review this information, understand it completely as you do your due diligence process and become a franchisee. Franchisee and franchise system information, line item 20. This line item only shows a chart that's showing the growth in owner turnover in the franchise system. It shows more than a few franchise outlets in your area have closed, have they been transferred to new owners, or have they been transferred back to the franchisor? And if so, what were the problems that maybe caused that? Was it due to franchisor support? Was it because the franchisee wasn't profitable? Whatever it may be. But in line item 20, it must be outlined as to the closing, the transferring to new owners, as well as the transferring back to the franchisor. This is an opportunity for you to really dig deep into the past history of the franchisees that have been part of the network, but may have not been able to make a good run at it for whatever reason. Item 21, the financial statements. The franchisor's 3 most recent audit annual financial statements can be found here. If you don't know how to read them, as I stated before regarding line item 19, this is where you need to go ahead and get some assistance from an accountant to help you understand this. This will give you a good understanding of the franchisor's overall financial health. If you don't think it's a good idea to hire an accountant, you'd probably be wrong here. This is a definite opportunity for you to have a subject matter expert to walk you through and explain how the franchisor is working and conducting their work financially. You want to be sure that you're investing in a stable franchise network, not something that's unstable. You want to make sure, as in previous line item was discussed, has the franchisor gone ahead and filed bankruptcy in the past? If the current status of the franchisor is not on stable footing, there's a possibility they could end up going out of business or go bankrupt after you've already invested all your money into that franchisor. What can an accountant help you understand in this process for line item 21? Has the franchisor shown nice, steady, progressive growth? Does the franchisor have a growth plan in place? What makes more of its income from royalty payments, from existing franchises, or from the state, or from the sale of franchises? Does the franchisor devote enough sufficient funds to support the entire franchise network? So with that being said, I hope this short little video on understanding the franchise disclosure document was helpful to you. If you have any questions or concerns, or just want to reach out and have a conversation regarding the FDD, any of the specific line items, I'd be happy to do so with you following this brief Zoom. Thanks a lot for your time. I really enjoyed it. Have a great day and take care.
Oh,
I never said that I was an attorney, but that I think is not a bad first assessment of the FDD in simplest terms. They are large documents. Some will range up into 300 to 400. So hopefully covering of the line items themselves was at least helpful for everyone. Well, at this time, we would like to go ahead and open up to any questions or comments anyone may have.
yeah. Anybody out there have any questions? I'll add a couple of things onto the video. I mean, one, you know, are you going to find an FDD where somebody shows that they've been convicted of a crime or, you know, filed bankruptcy or that? Probably not. But the point is that there's a forcing function that makes people disclose that. So what it really does is prevents people who have had bankruptcy or felons and convictions from becoming franchisors is the biggest thing. And if they are and they haven't disclosed it, then you have some legal ramifications in which if you find out later after the fact, you've been duped or something. So those are some aspects of it that are important. What are things to really look at? Like Mike talked about, item 19 is a big one. But also recognize with item 19 that, for example, we don't have a robust item 19 because we've only been franchising for little over a year. So we didn't have, I think we had two franchises that were operational when we published this most current FDD, two franchises that were operational longer than a year. And if you disclose one, you have to disclose them all. And we didn't want to disclose those because one was a conversion franchise and one was actually Mike's franchise that opened in December. So it was open for just over a full year, but it was a territory where we were already open in prior to Mike assuming it. So in that case, had we published those to the financial performance of those two franchisees, it likely would have painted too rosy of a picture, and we didn't want to do that. So we wanted to wait until we had new and old conversion franchises, et cetera. So those are some things you have to consider based on the type of system that you see out there, and just some things I would say right off the bat you should consider. Any questions, comments? Thanks, Michael. Appreciate that. Josh is a consultant. How did we do, Josh?
Hey, I thought that was pretty good. You know, I can listen to Mike talk.
Appreciate it, buddy.
Yeah.
So, hey, for anyone out there, like I said, have any questions, feel free to email either Paul or myself or connect with us on LinkedIn. It's how a large majority have gotten in contact with us in the past. Be happy to answer any questions. So appreciate you attending tonight. Paul, if you don't have anything.
Oh, wait a minute. Here's a question.
Oh.
Now they're starting to come in. Okay. How often is a franchisor legally obligated to update their FDD? You have to do it yearly. Or if there is a legal substantial change, Mike, I think.
Yeah, so there must be a legal substantial change paramount to the entire network. And that's when you have to then resubmit to have an updated FDD. But it is at a minimum required annually.
As of April 30th. So.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, I'm sorry. You have to file it by April 30th as of the previous calendar year.
Correct.
So, for example, we just filed ours. We had to have and it was delayed a bit because we had to have it was our first year of audited financials. So you have to include the audited financials from the previous calendar year And then, and so we'll update it. So next year when we update it, we'll likely have unit financials to add, et cetera. And then let's say hypothetically, we were going to change our franchise fee. So right now it's $45,000 or $35,000 for a veteran, a $10,000 discount. Let's say, midway through the year, we decide we want to change it to 55,000, and we do that, and we update the FDD. It has to be refiled, and also anytime it's filed and then it has to refiled, it has to be redisclosed. So you have to have 14 calendar days to review it. So let's say Justin out there is interested in a VetCore franchise. So we say, okay, Justin, here you go. We have to send it to you. You have to acknowledge the receipt. All you're doing is acknowledging you received it, and then we can't legally, nor any franchisor can legally sell you a franchise until you've had 14 days to review that. We can't offer you one. So that's just kind of, it's almost like a buyer beware type law, or a lemon law, if you will. So it makes sure that you have it and you've had the opportunity to review it.
How it's designed is really to protect you as a potential franchisee, so that you get an opportunity to have that document and then take a look at it. Years ago, many years back, someone would get an FDD and they'd look at it and like, oh man, this is great. Wow, look how much money I can make, or look at how little this costs to get into, and things of that nature. And they contact the franchisor and say, hey, this is awesome. Go ahead and send me a franchise agreement. I'll get it signed by the end of the week. And then they go ahead and they sign it. Well, now they're locked in. They have to pay the franchise fee. And as they start to get into it, more and more like, oh, well, I wasn't aware of that. Well, I didn't know that. I wasn't aware of these. Well, we disclosed it to you, but you obviously didn't take the time to read it. And, that's really not our fault, so to speak. So what it really has done is the FDD is now provided. It's acknowledged with the signature saying, yes, I received it. And then at a minimum, an individual cannot be offered a franchise 14 days after signing that. Most franchisors, and Josh, you can back us up on this, most franchisors are going to present the FDD to potential franchisees fairly on in the process, because what it does is all those line items like line 5, 6, and 7, line item 19, those specific line items will help you start to build your pro forma and business plan.
So there's another question out there, Mike. How much money will a franchisee make? And that's a great question. And any franchisor that answers that question, run as fast as you can away from them because they're not legally allowed to tell you. This is where it gets into the item 19. The only thing that a franchisor can say is, here is what atypical or or the 5 franchises we have open made last year. Or they could rank order it by, here's the top 20%, here's the middle 20%, the bottom by quartile.
Yeah, like I said in the briefing, they'll list it in usually quartiles. So here's the top 20%, here's the middle, the next 20%, and so on and so forth. And then they'll rank it on, okay, the top quartile made, gross revenue of $1.4 million. The next 20% made about, 1.1 million, et cetera, et cetera. So that's how it can be broken down. But, a franchisor can specifically outline and break down each individual franchisee's performance. So there are a lot of different ways that it can be presented from that picture and how it can be painted. And that's why it's really important to take a look at, 1, how it's presented, and then 2, that's where you want to be able to utilize an accountant if you're not familiar and understanding, the different items that are in there. Could be a profit and loss statement, could be a statement of cash flows, could be an income statement, could be a combination of all of them. So that's something where you want to absolutely look at and do your due diligence along with your accountant to understand what you're really reading if you don't have an understanding of those forms.
And I'll tell you what we do is we can get in the nitty gritty and the details on the costs, and we want to do that because what we want you to do is to develop a pro forma that you build on your own that gives you the intellectual integrity to make a decision whether our franchise is the right opportunity for you or any franchise. And what I tell people is that pro forma should be based on facts or assumptions, just like you're developing a plan in the military, and you want to try and make it based on as many facts as possible. So any line item that you have in the pro forma, which is basically a P&L, profit and loss statement monthly, that is planned out for 3 years, because that's what's going to take you to get an SBA loan. You're going to need that document, a pro forma business plan, to get an SBA loan, and you document for every line item number that you put in there. It should be based on either fact or assumption. If it's based on assumption, your job is to then go fight for facts. And how do you do that? You develop a collection plan. What is the intelligence you need to determine those, to make those assumptions become facts? For example, I think I'm going to pay $2,000 a month for rent. Okay, so every month you have $2,000 in there. That's an assumption. And then you go find the place that you're interested in renting, and you find out, oh, it's $1,850 a month. Now it's a fact. So you change it. And so you develop a collection plan to do those types of things. When you do that, and you do that on your own, you can provide it to the franchisor and say, what do you think? In general, a franchisor will not comment, and probably should not comment on it if it has revenue numbers in it. Because then they're talking to you about potentially how much money you can make, and it shouldn't be ever be a hypothetical. If you take the revenue numbers out of it and they say, does this look good for you? And you're only talking about expenses, we can talk about that all day long. And then once you sign a franchise agreement, now it's a big partnership, because the franchisor wants you to succeed, and there's no more buyer beware type laws governing that. So now we can go in and say, maybe you want to relook this assumption, or you have a problem with this pro forma, and but contractually now you've already agreed. It's a good deal moving forward. So I hope that helps.
The other thing I'll bring up just on that note is, you'll go through a part of the process called validation, and we as the franchisor cannot disclose certain things. But when you walk through the validation process within franchising, and that's when you have a list of the current franchisees that you can go ahead and contact and engage and ask them specific questions. That's basically one small business owner speaking to another, and they're not bound necessarily by franchise law like we as the franchisor are. And so that's something that, there are certain questions that you're not able to necessarily ask us, but you can certainly ask the active franchisees that are part of that network.
All right, I don't see any other questions in the chat box there.
No, I think they've all been covered.
Okay. Listen, everybody, we really appreciate you all attending. A standing open invitation that if Mike or I can help in any way whatsoever, please don't hesitate to reach out, whether it's generically about franchising, whether it's generically about business ownership, or if it's specifically about VetCorp, that's even better for us. But again, this is a no pressure opportunity just for us to talk about franchising, the industry that we've gotten kind of fallen in love with, and with our business model, and help other veterans succeed perhaps in a franchise, whether it's a VetCorp franchise or otherwise. So please use this as a resource. Please stay tuned in, and we'd ask for your help in that you be ambassadors for us and tell other folks about the opportunities. And if it's the right opportunity, it's a great mutual fit, then who? And if that does happen, and I'll let you know also that we have a referral program. So for any person that does a personal referral for us for a potential franchisee that turns into an actual franchise agreement, we reward them with $2,500, because we appreciate the effort and the amount of time it takes, and we recognize that our name and our brand and our reputation is going with that referral. So just want to let you guys know that, because in fact that's a bargain for us, because when you think about all the marketing and advertising we do to try and spread the word, we'd much rather have a personal referral, and we'd much rather pay that fee than pay the money in the marketing to try and cold call and find people. So we hope that you'll be ambassadors for us at the very least, and know that we are here for you as resources. Mike, any alibis?
Yep, just one last thing. Look for upcoming future invitations. We plan to, the next 3 months, to have these on the third Wednesday of every month. with a different topic kind of associated with the franchise onboarding process. So, from when you initially have a call with a franchisor all the way through to the end to signing an agreement, talking about discovery days, et cetera. So stand by, look forward to that about a week prior to the event. But the third Wednesday we'll be hosting the next 3 months, different events. So thanks a lot for attending tonight. Great seeing you all, and wish you all the best.
Thanks, everybody.